Have you ever gone to a concert like maybe Garth Brooks, and instead of Garth Brooks, the first act that comes on the stage is some band you've never heard of before, but you are reliably assured that they will someday be bigger than Garth Brooks, and then you never hear from them again? Well, the reason that they bring these unknowns up on there and have them run through a few songs is they intend to warm the crowd up, get people interested and entertained so that when the big act comes, well, that's when people really pay attention and start clapping. Sometimes it works that way in trials too. Here's what we're talking about today. An interesting component of due process is that when you have three defendants in a case, particularly a murder case that's being tried all together, where their liability is all lumped together because they were all involved in the same event, each one of them gets to have an attorney, and each attorney gets to have a run at the witnesses that come in to testify against them. Well, yesterday I pointed out how the defense was doing a good job with the fire captain and how he had done a reasonable job of explaining to the jury the process of how the fire alarm works and why you would want to have the fire alarm working because there were lives at risk. So I want you to think about the questioning that you heard yesterday as sort of that warm-up act, that first act that came on the stage, because he was getting pretty close to some of the issues that were important. Well, on the second day of the trial, the fire captain was back on the stand again, still being cross-examined, this time by a different attorney. And this time, the approach was a little different. You may recall that on the day before, the prosecution was a little bit prickly about the issue of the fire captain's knowledge about mental health, because after all, he's a fireman, he's not, a mental health expert. But of course, that's not really accurate since you work in a fire department and you see people at the worst times of their lives. And you also, as a paramedic, treat people at the worst times of their lives. You do see a lot of people who are maybe just a half a bubble off, maybe not even on the level. So you do have some expertise and some experience in that regard. And while you can't opine with a medical opinion like a doctor could, you can talk about your experience in those situations. And that's what the defense did here with the fire captain, only this time it's a different attorney, and he uses, again, very carefully crafted leading questions to ask these questions. And periodically in this next interchange, you are going to hear the state interrupt and object. And the judge, when he hears those objections, is going to overrule them because he knows, at least as well as the defense attorneys do, that paramedics deal with some really crazy things. When I worked as a paramedic at one point in my life, I got to see some really bizarre things. In one case, we found a guy who was out on the street. He had on his silk pajama bottoms, pink silk pajama bottoms, and he was walking down the street and talking. It looked like he was talking to himself. The police called us to evaluate him because he was obviously having some trouble. And I walked up and said, how are you doing? And he was coughing all over the place. And really, you could tell he was sick. He had some kind of pulmonary issue because he was coughing a lot and bringing stuff up. And we told him, we understand you're not feeling well. Is there a way we can sit down and assess you? Because I think maybe you may need some medical intervention here. No, 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 I got to find my dog. I'm like, well, we can look for your dog in just a little bit, but right now I'm concerned about you. Your dog will probably be okay. No, I have got to find my dog. Well, I appreciated the fact that he loved his dog, but come on. The guy was clearly not thinking straightly, and he was very obviously ill. So we had the police department put him into protective custody so that we could assess him, and he had a fever of 104.6 degrees. And we later found out from his family he didn't even own a dog, which so people when they get ill, they sometimes do mentally decompensate in some respects because they're getting less oxygen to the brain, in other respects because the fever is having an effect on their brain. So paramedics do see people who are mentally decompensating, and that's the point that he's driving at here.
I believe you testified that you're a paramedic, correct?
Yes, sir.
And can you explain to the jury the difference in training that you receive between an EMT and a paramedic?
EMT basic is mainly just basic life support, giving oxygen, performing CPR, taking base vital signs like blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen saturation. They do have some newer skills that they're allowed to do now that we weren't as basics. I can't think of those right now. But as a paramedic, we get into reading 12 lead EKGs. We could do thoracotomies where we cut open if we have trapped air in their lungs. We could do cricothyrotomies. We could administer drugs. We have advanced cardiac life support.
Do you have technology that you are taught to use that can take more complicated vital signs? Like a Zoltan?
Yes, sir. That's where we take all those that I just listed here. This is basically, it's an all-in-one monitor. We'll take a blood pressure, pulse, oxygen saturation. It'll read their heart rhythm and check for if they need a shock or not. It'll defibrillate. It can pace the heart. If it's beating too slow, it'll pace it at a correct speed.
Do you agree you have to have a license or certification from the state of Texas?
Yes.
So the purpose of this line of questioning is to essentially lay out his certifications and his state licensure. And he's doing that mostly to lay a foundation so that in a little bit he can talk about his experience as a certified paramedic working in the state of Texas. That's pretty much all this line of questioning had to do with.
And you have been on police calls where an emergency detention has been done, correct?
Correct.
And as part of emergency detention, sometimes you're asked to check vital signs because there may be questions about whether someone's behavior is induced by a medical condition or drugs or a mental health problem, correct?
Correct.
And you've done that before, correct?
Yes, sir.
How many times have you done that?
Countless.
Countless?
Over 100. Yeah.
Over 100. So you have a lot of experience in dealing with people who have suffered some form of mental decompensation, correct?
Correct.
And tell us what mental decompensation is.
When they're just not acting like a normal person would be, I guess. What you would expect from how a normal person act, right?
And you can recognize that, right?
Most of the times, yeah.
And would you agree with me that you would not trust one of your loved ones who is unable to care for himself, such as a child or an infant, or perhaps an elderly grandparent that's an invalid, or maybe a parent that's an invalid, be under the care of someone who's suffering mental decompensation? You would do that, would you? It's relevant because, and if you want us to approach, we can approach.
Overruled. I must have missed part of the question, but under the care of who?
Could the court reporter read that back? Because I don't want to mislead you in any way, shape, or fashion.
Yes. Question. All right. And would you agree with me that you would not trust one of your loved ones who is unable to care for himself, such as a child or infant, or perhaps an elderly grandparent that's an invalid, or maybe a parent that's an invalid, be under the care of someone who is suffering mental decompensation? You wouldn't do that, would you?
Oh, under the care of somebody suffering mental decomposition? No.
Now, why is this important? Because you'll remember yesterday that there was a invalid, a person who couldn't get up off the couch, a fellow who is obviously suffering from some physical disability, and as a result, he's described as an invalid in much of the paperwork that's been filed in this case. And so she has a mental disability. She has this mental problem with paranoia and schizophrenia and all of that. And essentially, the attorney is attempting to make the point and link the fact that these officers know that there's this invalid in there, and just like he wouldn't want someone caring for his loved one with a mental decompensation, they don't want to let this man be harmed by somebody who may, in her paranoia, suddenly wonder where this guy came from and decide it's a good idea if she attempts to bludgeon him to death with a hammer because he's there. They don't have any knowledge of how bad or how small her mental defects are at this point. And so that's the point of this. It's like you're using the state's witness against them at every turn, and each lawyer gets a chance to do this. So the state has the guy on the stand for an hour, and the defense has him up there for a lot longer because they are using him to, question by question, build their case.
Was it clear to you that Melissa Pettis, given the fact that she was saying that she was the daughter of Elvis, that she was a member of the cartel, that she had a baby that was taken away from her, that she was paranoid, that the FBI was following her, and on and on and on, that she was suffering some kind of mental decompensation? Clear to you?
Yes.
The next step is to use the fire captain's body camera to demonstrate that perhaps there are a few more jokers in the deck than there are high cards. And in this regard, I think they do a pretty good job of demonstrating a little bit anyway how mentally decompensated she really is.
Why are you cutting the wires again? You're trying to fix it, or?
All right. So you recognize that you're by a retaining wall of brick right there.
Okay.
Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
And the curb line to the parking lot is at the bottom of the screen, correct?
Correct.
There's bushes here.
Yes, sir.
All right. And if we play this further, we'll show that you were.
Yeah.
When I've already gone around the complex and investigated, and then you see a whole bunch of wires coming through the building and the plugs.
Right.
And then I found 14 batteries that were not connected.
Oh.
So what the
Okay, when she said there were 14 batteries that were connected, you understand that there are large backup batteries for a fire alarm system, correct?
Yeah, about like this, but she said not connected, right?
Correct. And you would agree with me that if Kenji Uno, after this incident, found 13 batteries in her residence, that would be consistent with this statement, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
All right.
I just noticed she pointed that time towards her apartment.
All right. And right here is a window, and here are some utility meters, correct?
Right.
All right, let's continue to play.
gonna do is I'm gonna connect all the wirings to the mishap to her rescue.
So what'd you do with the wires that you cut? Did you fix them?
I didn't get them. Those are wires.
You just
No,
cut
those
them in half?
are wires from last time that I was
So you
investigating.
just cut these in half?
I
They
just
could put
cut
them
them.
back together?
But I'm gonna tell you something. I went into my complex when it's more quiet.
Oh, because you cut the wires?
Yeah. because I've been.
All right. Now, would you agree with me at some point in time, Officer Ramos drove up directly behind where you were standing?
If that was his name, yeah, I remember one officer did pull up.
All right. And when I say pulled up, he was 9 yards behind you, correct? Approximately.
I mean, if you say so, yeah.
So now we want to talk about where she is versus the arriving officer, one of the defendants in this case. And he asks a question, he gets an answer, and then he goes to a Google Earth photo.
All right. So, can we show Google Earth?
All right, I'll sustain. You want to authenticate it?
Yes. Officer, would you agree that this is consistent with an aerial photo that accurately depicts?
Yeah, Your Honor,
I haven't finished my question. All
it's on the screen. You show you took the jury. I'll sustain the objection.
right. Can we approach the witness?
Yes, you can approach.
Approach.
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been displayed on our computer screen, and I'm representing to you that that is a 3D aerial display from Google Earth of Building 3. Does that look familiar?
It looks right, yeah.
And does that accurately and depict the Rosemont apartment, Building 3, where you responded to?
It looks.
Okay, you can approach.
And the problem here is really one of the prosecution trying its best to disrupt the presentation of evidence for the defense. And what they do is they make objection that it's not authenticated, meaning, of course, the defense has not laid a proper foundation for the admission of this Google Earth photograph, which, of course, they can do through this witness because he's a fireman, he's been there, he was there that night. So they draw this objection, and I think all it does is it delays the inevitable, as we see here.
The bushes and the brick wall would have been approximately right here. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
All right. And the sprinkler closet that we're going to talk about later would have been about right here, correct?
Correct.
One of the things that movie stars worry about is the amount of screen time that they get in a movie. It isn't enough just to get a credit for having appeared in a movie unless you're, somebody who's already made their reputation and has their name well recognized. Somebody like a Sir John Gielgud, maybe. Rather, if you're an up and coming star in Hollywood, you want as much screen time as you can possibly get because you want to be in front of people so that you'll be remembered. Well, it works the same way, in the movies, you're telling a story. Well, in a trial, you're telling a story too. So the amount of screen time that you get, which in this case is the amount of time that you're up in front of the jury, is also important. And for that reason, all of this time that they're getting to go through this captain's very interesting and in some ways almost irrelevant testimony, at least as far as the actual shooting goes, they are laying a great foundation again for the claim that the acts of these officers were reasonable. Now, will the jury necessarily remember that at the end of the trial? Will they apply the knowledge that they've learned through this and reach the result that the defense wants? Who knows? And of course, the prosecution's going to get an opportunity to come up and ask this paramedic, well, you're not a medical doctor, are you? No. And you're not offering a medical opinion, are you? No. And for that reason, the jury shouldn't rely on you as for medical judgment, should they? No, of course not. Of course, they'll have to do it through open-ended questions, not closed-ended questions like mine, but the effect will be the same. They'll try to undercut any damage that was done. But as we always say, when at trial, when you're explaining, you're losing. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here today. If you have the opportunity today, try to do one kind thing to help somebody else. Any kind thing will do. Buy somebody a Coke, get them a cup of coffee, anything that makes their day better. That would be a way to help make the world a better place. Because after all, isn't that what we're all after? Now, YouTube has a few things that they think you might be interested in, and they're going to be showing you that right up there.